Picture this. You're presenting a strategic roadmap to Jensen Huang. Your numbers are stress tested. Every objection is pre-answered, and your presentation is immaculate. But somewhere around the third slide, the room goes quiet. It's not hostile, but the silence is deafening. That's the rejection signal that you didn't see it coming. Now you didn't lose the room because your idea was weak. You lost it because you walked in looking too confident. Most executives reward certainty. Huang is calibrated to distrust it. The more polished your presentation, the more data he assumes you're hiding. That's why talented operators leave these meetings convinced they performed well and never receive a follow-up. Let's break down Jensen Huang's archetype by classifying his hardware first. Huang's facial architecture correlates directly with elevated dominance orientation, confrontational default, and a severely compressed threshold for compromise. He is likely to establish social and relational bandwidth as the primary motivational driver, not pure execution, but also not abstract theory. This architecture processes reality through continuous environmental scanning, rapid interpersonal data intake, and threat assessment of every incoming signal. The public reads Huang as a domineering empire builder, ruling with physical presence and iron control, but this read is just the surface layer, and it risks getting you eliminated. Huang's actual operating system running underneath is a paranoid intelligence network, continuously scanning for systemic blind spots. He is not evaluating your conviction. He is evaluating whether you can improve his map of reality. That is a completely different interaction. When we go over Huang's behavioral record, we find other seeming contradictions that clue in how to properly interact with him. In 1995, NVIDIA nearly collapsed. A foundational partnership dissolved. Huang stood in front of his team, named the failure directly, stripped it to its mechanical root cause, and rebuilt from first principles. No defensive narrative, no blame transfer. A clinical diagnosis followed immediately by a corrective vector. That is not the behavior of someone protecting personal ego. That is someone whose deepest operational fear is informational blindness, missing the variable that destroys the system. Under pressure, Huang didn't retreat inward. He escalated his intelligence gathering more data, performing more stress testing, and gaining more exposure to what might fail next. In other words, Huang projects unbreakable authority, but internally, he is running continuous catastrophic risk modeling. Here's where most operators self-destruct, and they never know it happened. The standard executive instinct is to project certainty, resolve objections preemptively, deliver a polished narrative that signals total control. With an operator like Jensen Huang, that sequence is bound to backfire. Here are 3 specific failure points you do best to avoid when interacting with a Jensen Huang-like figure in your life. First, the immaculate success narrative. Every risk addressed, every downside minimized. The presentation has no visible cracks. This triggers immediate informational distrust. Jensen Huang has survived near death by locating the variables everyone else missed. A flawless narrative signals you're concealing the variables, not that you've resolved them. The Polish becomes the evidence against you. Second, validation seeking. Asking questions such as, does this direction resonate? Or, what's your initial reaction? Asking for his read signals you do not trust your own analysis enough to stand on it without external confirmation. That categorization happens in milliseconds, and it is nearly impossible to reverse in the same session. Third, narrative failure attribution. Don't blame timeline slippage because the team was stretched. The market moved unexpectedly. The client shifted scope. Huang requires a mechanical breakdown, a root cause, the failure point identified, and a plan to fix the issue. Narrative justification activates his dominant, uncompromising side, and you will not recover inside that interaction window. What I've described so far is pattern recognition. There are 4 behavioral architectures that govern how people process information and apply pressure in high-stakes moments. We've built a free PDF brief, 4 archetypes, immediate delivery to your inbox, no cost. The link is in the description. This video and the PDF will give you pattern recognition that fundamentally shifts how you frame interactions with other humans. Precision is only possible after that baseline is reached. Now here are 3 asymmetric plays, counterintuitive, calibrated specifically to this behavioral architecture. First, lead with a flaw in your own position. Before he locates the weak variable, name it yourself. The primary risk in this model is X, and here's the test we're currently running to isolate it. This is not weakness signaling. It mirrors his documented survival mechanism. His threat detection radar drops immediately because you've just demonstrated you operate at his frequency. Secondly, strip every evaluative adjective from your communication. No verbiage like significant opportunity, strong momentum, or exciting trajectory. Replace every judgment word with a raw mechanical observation. Variable under test is X, current output is Y. Adjustment vector is Z. That is the dialect this architecture operates in. When you speak it fluently, the defensive scanning stops. You transition from external sales pressure to internal cognitive alignment. Third, become the early warning node, not the solution seller. Over repeated interactions, introduce one unresolved macro-level anomaly per engagement, not a pitch, not a problem that needs him to act. An open variable requiring attention that he hasn't fully mapped yet. This repositions you structurally over time. You stop being an operator seeking budget approval and become an intelligence source he cannot afford to disconnect. You become indispensable. Now, as a warning, running this sequence on a different cognitive architecture will produce exact resistance. What disarms a paranoid systems thinker will detonate against a consensus-driven operator. Precision is not optional when the outcome matters. If there's someone in your environment, a senior executive, a key investor, a dominant decision maker, where the stakes are real and guesswork is expensive, the Strata protocol removes the variable entirely. Submit your target. Within 48 hours, we extract their exact behavioral fingerprint. Communication triggers, decision architecture, documented pressure responses, packaged into a tactical dossier built for immediate deployment. Link is in the description, stratintel.io. Don't walk into rooms you haven't already mapped.